Hey, one more thing before you go. Have you ever wondered what drives a person to excel in multiple fields? What if the same individual manages to balance writing, captivating novels, researching emotional intelligence, teaching, and running a business? We're going to answer these questions and so many more when we have a conversation with a multi talented writer, entrepreneur, and academic researcher whose background in emotional intelligence and leadership research adds layers of insight into how we face life's challenges and navigate the unexpected. And she's a brilliant writer. I'm your host, Michael Hurst. Welcome to One More Thing Before You Go. Rhonda Parker Taylor, she's an American writer, entrepreneur, and academic researcher, as I said. She's from Noblesville, Indiana. She found her passion for writing after completing a fashion merchandising program. Her debut novel, Crossroads, released in February 2023, is a suspenseful crime thriller. As a cop, I'm going to love this. It's endorsed by the best-selling author J.J. Hebert and Golden Globe nominated actress Mario Hemingway. Rhonda's academic pursuits included a doctoral program at the University of Phoenix, where alumni, Rhonda, and in an MBA, let me try that again, an MBA and a bachelor's in science management from Indiana Wesleyan University. Her academic research on emotional intelligence has led her to present at the United Nations Global Compact Committee. She founded Intelligence Solutions and served in various roles, including campus director and professor at National College. Welcome to the show, Rhonda.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for having me. And I can't wait, I can't wait, I can't wait because you know what? With you having a background in NCIS and being a cop, you can probably teach me a few things that I put in my next novel. And it's something that I thrive on. I'm on that television watching NCIS all the time. So there you go.
You know, it,
Um, we'll,
it
we'll be
it's
right there.
yeah, I'm excited as well. I think that what a wonderful opportunity for us to be able to kind of inspire, educate, and motivate people, entertain just a little bit, and then we can both learn something. So
Exactly. And hey, who would have known we would have been alumni? Hey, shout out there to all the University of Phoenix grads. My goodness, I know there's a ton of you, and I know if any of them have gone through the doctoral program, you've gone right there to campus for your final projects, etc., and learned how to do your dissertation. So welcome everybody that's out there. And if you're not, hey, just come along for the ride.
absolutely, because there's going to be one heck of a ride. So I like to start at the beginning, if you don't mind. What was it like growing up in Noblesville, Indiana?
Well, Noblesville is very much like Hallmark. When I grew up there, it was only maybe one or two lights through the whole town. We had a cornfield behind us, a cow pasture across from us, and to the right we had a a field, and to the left we had a woods. And if we wanted to meet, all the kids would run to the woods and climb trees, and it was very quiet. And I think that was a benefit for me because it allowed me to grow with a natural setting of what life is. And it also taught me how to sustain self through gardening, the earth, etc. But at the same time, I had a desire to see the big world. So I think that's where the writing comes in.
I think that, as a writer, you get to create an environment or a world where we can escape to. And I think that whether it be from a fantasy perspective, a crime thriller, be the detective, be the villain, be anything that you want to be, you create the world for us to be able to kind of integrate into and get away from this life for just a little bit.
Exactly. Exactly. And see, I wasn't an A student when I was younger. I was just the mediocre student but when I go back and look at pictures of me young, I always had a book in my hand. And when I look closer at them, they were the inappropriate books that for the age probably. So I would have encyclopedias, I would have Carmen, I would have all these more exotic books that taught me about the world. And I think that, through that though, I learned the art of storytelling because I had a desire to learn more, but I didn't necessarily follow the structure of just regular academics.
And there is an art in storytelling.
Mhm.
You sound like our oldest daughter has always a book in our oldest daughter's hand, which led her to be an actor. So
Oh,
she took that route. She loves the creative aspect of that. So she's been an actor ever since high school, actually, and in a professional field, in a professional capacity, because she loved getting lost in the storytelling. She got lost in that wonderful world of fantasy and creating something that we can escape to, like that, like you just did. And I know that you hadn't always been an author, because I find this really interesting. You transitioned from a fashion merchandising to writing crime thrillers. How did that? What motivated you to go that way?
well, I think for me, first it was going to fashion merchandising because guess what? All the beautiful people lived in Dallas. I wanted to, I had been watching the show Dallas, and that's where the young, the beautiful, and the drinking age was 18. And so I went to Dallas wanting to pursue fashion, and I still love fashion. It's still a passion for me. But what I learned in that program was I could be whatever I wanted to be. It was about the application of it. And so then I decided from the fashion merchandising that I needed to get my business degree, my bachelor's, because that was only a 2-year program. And when I did that, and then I got my master's and my doctorate, all of them are in business. The reason is I felt like that was where I would thrive. I came from entrepreneurs. And what I did writing wise then was I would journal a lot of my thoughts and my feelings, and sometimes even ideas for books or short stories. And I realized that I also had a passion for writing, but I never thought I would make a living doing it because I business is where the money is, and then I went into academics and started teaching, which I equally have a passion for. I love mentoring people, but that's because I had mentors. And so I realized that mentoring was a big part of life, that for someone to step out of their own box and thrive, sometimes they need someone outside of their family that's going to help them navigate a world that's different than what they know. And it also challenges a person like myself to also evaluate and reflect on what they've been taught to figure out, hey, what's right? What's wrong? What do I really believe in? Who am I really?
That thing I say, it's a wonderful opportunity for us to not only look within ourselves but look outside of ourselves. You put yourself in a position. Well, I have to ask you this question first, because when you write, do you? Because I'm gonna give everybody just a little secret. I love fashion. Okay, I love dressing up. I love nice suits. I love a nice tailored cut. I have double breasted. I have a single breasted. I've got Italian shoes. I've got Italian suits. I've got my shirts are tailor cut. My dress shirts, just from a male perspective, and I love fashion. So, do you integrate your fashion experience into your novels?
Oh, definitely. Each character. Well, first I start with a soap note on them. So, for all your medical listeners out there, a soap note is your history of medical and the history of your family's medical. So, when you go to the doctor and then you go into your portal and you see all the history in there, well, you know, a seasoned people, they didn't do that. It was all on paper, but now they keep everything. So when you get my age, in my 60s, guess what? You're going to end up looking back and you'll see everything. You broke your ankle when you were 5. You had
Yeah.
whooping cough. You had this, you had that. So I do that for every character Then I also do their DSM-5, which is their mental health assessment. So I
Wow.
know, okay, they're 4 out of 5 in depression. This person's got all 6 of the anxieties and characteristics. So then I know how they're going to behave. Then I said, okay, it's time to go shopping for them. And I pick their house out and I find the house and how many rooms does it have and how did they decorate it? And then I go shopping for their clothes. This person's conservative, business. This person's casual. This person's off the wall. This person's that. And so I try to make them authentic to people's personalities. So yes, I shop for all of them, and sometimes those little things end up in my Amazon box because I'm like, oh well, that one might be good.
Oh, so not only do we get a thrilling criminal or crime novel, not only do we get the intrigue and the suspense and the crime solving, we get some fashion sense too.
Yeah, so like for instance, in Crossroads, I wanted all the scenes to be real. So all the locations are locations in Indianapolis. So you got the city county building, you have the mayor's office, you have the circle, the monument circle, you have Holiday Park. And so I put historical flavor in it and what people are thinking about, like maybe they're questioning why are the pillars in the park and how did they get them here, and they came from New York, believe it or not. And I put all that in there because I want people to feel like they've been to a location. Same thing, the IRT theater is in it. I know we were talking before, line, that your daughter is in as
She's
an artist herself. Well, the theater, I have a scene where it's actually in the theater and they go to dinner before at Cheddar's, and then they go to the theater and then they're walking. So I want that flavor to be there. So it's like if we went out to dinner, or we went out and had a conversation during this, but at the same time it's still a whodunit thriller.
Yeah, that's brilliant actually, because anybody that visits there or lives there can walk around and say, "Oh, we know what happened here.
Yeah.
We know
The
where the
dead bodies
bodies are
dropped
buried. We
behind
know."
Lafayette Square. The dead bodies dropped behind Lafayette Square Mall on the railroad tracks. Everybody knows that's the most spooky turn in the area. So if you've been there, you'll see it.
That's very cool. What inspired you to go to psychological thrillers, crime
Well,
novels?
I think two things. The first one was I was doing a community service project that I was overseeing the crime and the courts to see everything was being treated equally in all the courtrooms. So I got the flavor for crime and how things were handled in the courtrooms. The problem that I found when I was doing that is there is no winners. And so I relay that in the book, I think, pretty strongly. It doesn't matter whether you're the jury or the perpetrator, everybody loses once they've entered that room because you're losing your time, you're losing your energy, you're losing your innocence in some cases. If it's especially in murder cases. So I wanted that to be part of the storyline. But then I realized as I was developing it that I was also exploring some what ifs. I'll give you an example. When I had a person read Crossroads, they said, you need to make the first chapter of a crime novel grab you and pull you in. I'm like, well, a dead body will do that. And so then I started thinking, well, how's this person going to die for this court case? And I was like, oh, they need to be stabbed. And the reason is I had at one point in my life had someone pull a knife on me. Now, obviously, I'm still healthy and everything's fine, right? But it allowed me to explore in a journaling way what would have happened if it had been me. So I dumped the 15-year-old girl off on the railroad tracks and tried to do it as honestly and as respectfully as I could. I didn't go into the horror of such crimes. Instead, I went into the psychological part of the officers who had to respond, having one be a senior officer and one first homicide. How do they get through that? And so I found that the crime thriller aspects let me enter people's lives to entertain them, but also make them think. So even though it's a crime novel, I also made every character loyal to something that's not best for them. So, like the main character, Paris Pennington, who's the jury foreman, is a workaholic. We have Dave, the prosecutor, is the law and order guy, completely bought in, completely to the Constitution and everything else. And then we have Billy Knuckles, the co-defendant, who has to decide to be a rat or take a charge with his friend. And you have all these people that are loyal to the wrong things. They're at a crossroads.
That's really, I mean, the way that you piece this together is really interesting because the majority of what we see typically when somebody's writing a crime thriller or any kind of a crime novel, they've usually been in and around law enforcement, or they've, they come at it from that perspective, or they're in a larger city, New York City or Los Angeles or Phoenix, where there's a consistent, and I don't mean to put it this way because it sounds kind of cold, a consistent body of bodies, a pool of bodies and cases that you can pull from. How did you kind of piece together this opportunity to take place in a small town like this?
Well, I wanted it to be something I was familiar with. I wanted people to understand that even in great cities like Indianapolis, or Noblesville or Anderson, things still happen.
Yeah.
And that we have to be aware, and you have to understand that it's complex. So I added 3 emotions that we'll see by all the characters at some point: anger, fury, and envy, and all of them can cause a crime. So as they're in this system and they're going through the trial, things start happening to the jury. And so now they have to figure out why. So IPD has to go out there and figure out why is things happening. And all of them are exhibiting reasons or a motive. And in Proverbs, it says, anger is cruel, fury is overwhelming, but who can stand before jealousy? So even in the biblical times, in Proverbs, we're warned that those 3 emotions will destroy us. And it's up to us as a reader to decide who is off balance. Who's the one that actually could be doing the new crimes? And really, did the first 2 that are on trial, were they the ones that did it? Because we're not sure. They're there for a reason. We haven't gotten a guilty or an innocence yet. And when you explore those emotions from the perspective of the reader, we realize that we've been angry before. We've been furious before. We've been envious before. So are we going to allow it to be a cancer in our own lives? And so I'm hoping that people reflect at that point on what they can do.
So a lot of your research in emotional intelligence and your experience with emotional intelligence probably went into the book in regard to that, because that's a unique approach, actually, I think. Because most people think of, you got a good guy, you got a bad guy, you got several suspects with motive, means, motive, and opportunity. You put means, motive, and opportunity within the book, I'm sure. And
Yeah.
in regard to that, you tied emotional intelligence or emotional aspects to each one of those, which I think is pretty cool. What other kind of research did you do in regard to creating that, coming from where has there been a lot of crime like coming out of your hometown?
But now in Indianapolis, as it's getting bigger, there is more. We're right outside of Indianapolis, so it's kind of spread out like all cities. We're
Right.
all one now, even though we're different. But yeah, I did a lot of research, believe it or not. One of the things that I did is I rode around with the police officers. I never got to go to a murder investigation, but that gave me the flavor of how officers, when things are kind of tight, have kind of a banter that gets them through the situation.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we could call it locker room talk, but it's really a banter of helping each other emotionally deal with it without saying, "Hey, are you okay over there?" It's kind of a banter. I went to the library in Indianapolis, the Central Library, where all the research is, and you weren't allowed to check out the books, but it was on. There was a specific book. I don't even remember the name of it now. I just know I just kept going back and reading it, and it was interviews with serial killers
Wow.
and what their motives and why
Why they do it.
they say they did it. We all have our own reasonings that we might think they do, but it gave me that idea. And then things like listening to 911 calls to
Mm.
know how when people are in that situation they sound, to make it more authentic.
Very cool. I mean, you did a lot of in-depth research. We call it shop talk, by the way. It's a
Is that
locker
what
room
you guys?
talk. Yeah, it's called shop talk because
Yeah.
the police car is our shop. It's our office. It's our home
Yeah.
for 8 to 12 hours a day, and you have freedom. This is a little inside information. You have freedom to talk in the shop. You have freedom to get angry, to get mad, to cry, to anything that you want to do in the shop. It's your little protection. So we call it shop talk.
Yeah, and that makes a whole lot of sense. I mean,
Uh,
because that's what I witnessed. And what I witnessed was, you know, people not knowing really how to navigate it with each other, but navigating it with each other.
yeah. Easy way. Yes, very much so. And did you do it? I got to ask you this too, because you mentioned NCIS earlier. Did you make yourself watch all the NCIS episodes?
I've done all of it. Well, it's funny because I was on a podcast one time and they did like a Jeopardy, pick your favorite ones, and we had to, and kind of like a top 10, 5,
All that
like
good
we
stuff.
basketballs, and they were doing all the different ones. It's like I watched that one 48 hours. I've done this one. I've done that one. And so I'd watched them all, and I'm like, okay, you're a little bit of a junkie here.
Yeah, it is very addicting. And see, now my wife has gone through an FTO program, a field training program, and now we can solve crimes together, sitting on the couch, going through the shows and going, no, wait a minute, no, that's not right. They wouldn't do that, or yelling, do this, do this, do this, because we watch The Rookie and we watch. I've lived vicarious since I've retired. I have to live vicariously through these. See, so
Well,
I
that's
have.
probably more.
Yeah, what's that?
I said that's probably mentally more healthy to live vicariously than have to go to every scene
Yes.
again.
Yes, 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 yes. So we live vicariously through this, and now my wife sometimes will figure it out before I do. It's like, wait a minute, wait a minute. The rookie's not supposed to surpass the elder yet. But yeah, we enjoy doing that every day. So that would be a really good excuse to research your next book. See, you
Yeah.
just watch all those
Well, I
shows.
got a second one coming out. It's called The Journey of Hope, and it deals with the one of the girls in the. Oh, I actually have 5 that I've written, but we've only released one of them. The Crossroads came out. We have Journey of Hope coming out this year at the end of the year, and it takes one of the characters from Crossroads, and she is exploring life, and she just kind of a dingbat, but she's doesn't see that safety is a priority. And what I want people to do, because my model for this is in Crossroads, I have 2 self help books coming out. One is Life Balance, and so if
Mhm.
you identify with the characters, you can do it. And then the other is resilience, because sometimes you have to figure out how to get up that 8th time, when you've been knocked down. So then in this one, with the Journey of Hope, there'll be 2 more self-help books that come out. And one will be on victimization and how to get rid of the victimization
Mm.
mentality that prevents you from providing your own safety. Good example. You're in a store alone working. and someone comes in and the training manual tells you you must greet everybody and you must go up to them and you must talk to them, but you're the only one there, and you just get that inkling that something's wrong, and you don't listen to that inkling and you go anyway and follow the procedures because you want to move up the ladder. What happens? Something may happen. In my case, this actually happened to me, and a knife was pulled on me. So when do we listen to our voices? When do we learn that in some cases protection is more important than what we've been told is the right thing to do?
I agree with that. I think that gut instinct is always a better
Mhm.
opportunity for you to understand your current situation and whether or not you feel that you need to take yourself out of that situation before something bad happens.
Right, exactly. So that would be the second one, and then each of the five books follows the journeys of one of the characters in Crossroads, and we have one on domestic violence, we have one on substance abuse, so we have different
You're
things
taking
that
a
still cross the pipeline.
wide spectrum because that's a lot.
But all of them keep on coming back. All the same police officers keep on running into the. And what do you see when you're a police officer? A revolving door of people that you've seen
Exactly.
before.
100%. It happens consistently all the time. And, a cops work a variety of jobs. I worked domestic violence task force for a number of years. I worked a DUI task force for a number of years, a fugitive task force for a number of years.
Oh,
You
that's
know,
probably interesting.
yeah, and a patrol, the patrol sergeant, and
Mm-hmm.
you work a variety of situations. You go into the worst of the worst. You see the worst people, and you see the best people at their worst.
Right.
All the time. So it's
Right.
kind of one of those things that I think that I appreciate the fact that you're giving a wider spectrum of what really happens and what's going on, and it's not just what you see on TV all the time. It's not all glory. It's not all guts and glory, but there you probably
Is
get
gets
boring.
in
Yeah,
too.
it's quite a bit. So you I should have asked you this sooner. Do you have a family? Do you have
I
kids?
do. I do. Well, I do not have any kids now. I had an adopted son that was shot and killed. He was working at a bar, and so they had put somebody out. He was in security, and when they put them out, he when they opened up the door at last call, the guy was out there with a gun and shot the security team. That was in 2009. I come from a family of five siblings, so big family, very much what you would think from a small town country girl, and then lots of nieces and nephews, and a husband, and life is good. But like anybody, we have our ups and downs, we have our
Yes.
trials and storms.
I'm sorry for your loss on that, or hopefully you got justice from that, and they were able to.
No, because every all the witnesses except for one was passed, and there was a trial, and that's something that I learned after all of everything. Um, they couldn't convict him.
That's too bad. That's
Yeah.
unfortunate. That's unfortunate. As an individual that has arrested in my career close to a couple, maybe 3,000 people in my career,
Hmm.
I that yeah, I'm sorry that they weren't able to get him, but there's always karma in the end.
Yeah, it'll happen.
Yeah, there's always karma in the end.
Always
Well,
happen.
are you still an educator?
I do. I work in a different capacity. I don't work in the classrooms anymore. I went from classrooms to administrator, and then I pulled out, and now I'm just a mentor or a chair for
Mhm.
dissertations and capstone projects. But I do still mentor, or also some of my individual consultants are looking for what field do I need to do? What do I need to do
Right.
to change and go through transitions?
So that's cool. I mean, that's a nice way to move into a different phase of your life, a different chapter of your life. Because now,
Hmm.
obviously, your writing is taking off where it needs to be. How
Hmm.
do you balance writing fiction with creating, what you're doing with these individuals, where you're trying to help them, through their educational aspects and educational and academic experiences? How do you kind of balance that?
Well, the first thing I do, and I did it too well at first, and that is I say one page a day and it's done in a year. I took the stress off of me of saying you've got to write in your own stuff and only feature your own work, because for me, building others is very important. Everybody sometimes needs that helping hand up or that support to know, where they need to go next. For me, I was the first female in my family to go to college, period. So not everybody has a model that they can follow. So I think that's real important. So I never wanted to get out that. So what I do is that my consulting comes first. I don't overcommit, and continue to make sure one page a day of new writing of my own work is done per day. If I do that, that's 365 pages in a year. So it doesn't take 365 pages to get a whole novel out or a self help book out. It's usually more like 200.
How do you keep track, if I can ask, because obviously you're doing one page a day, do you are you able to keep track of the plot and the characters and the integrations and everything that you need to do to carry each chapter through?
Yeah, what I do is I really think about the story first before I put the characters even in it. So let's say, for instance, in Crossroads, I knew that I wanted, there to be a jury. I knew there wanted to be the trial, and so I have little chunks of the story of and then I expand the story. So once I get the story out, then I can do, new pages a day on each scene. So I can say, oh, I want Dave to go to the circle and look at the monument because he's the law and order guy. Everything that has to do with history and everything that has to do with, law, order, and building the structures in our society, he's going to reflect on where that came from. So, there's a scene where he stops and he remembers his grandfather telling him the importance of law and this and the Constitution. So I can add that flavor after I get the story and say, okay, Dave's the prosecutor. This is what he's going to do. This is what's going to happen. This is what the crime's going to be, and I can do it that way.
That's pretty. I mean, obviously, I'm sure that and I think it also can keep you present in your story, because doing it every day
Exactly.
is going to keep you present within the story. I remember back having to write my own research papers, and I could never put it down and then say, "Well, I'll finish this tomorrow." I was one of those persons that had to. I'll be up as long as it takes to get it done tonight. So that would be my fear if I was starting to write a book, because I would have to want to never
With all
stop
your knowledge,
the flow.
you should. Yeah, but with all the knowledge that you have
Yeah.
inside you, you have a great story in there, I know. But what I did to accomplish that, because of being an academic researcher and the fact that I was academic oriented,
Right.
is I would write a scene. So you'll see that there'll be a scene, for instance, maybe Dave, and it's his perspective. He's in his office. He's looking at the case. He's got the file. And then once that scene was done, it's only a page or two. Then I would put it away. I could go on to the next scene. And so then the next scene might be Paris, and she's in her office looking out over the city, and she's a finance wizard at the AUL building, and she's getting ready to go into the boardroom, and then that one's over, and then you can pull them all together as they start meeting each other.
It's like writing a movie.
Yeah, basically.
Kind of like writing a movie. That's pretty cool, actually. That's a unique approach within itself. I've had conversations with other writers on the show that have. Some of them have written whole chapters within a couple of days, and they stayed up and did it, just straight, and then put it down. And then the following week, they would write another chapter, kind of a situation. I think it's a very unique way of doing yours. I love I've always wanted to be a screenwriter. And so to me, my brain thinks that way in a scene, in a scene, in a scene, in a scene. And maybe that's because I watch too much TV, but
Or
it's,
the fact that that's the way you probably had to do it as an officer.
well,
You
that,
go to the scene and you
yeah,
see what's there. You go to your computer and you have to see what's there, and then you have to talk to people and see what's there. So it's the scene after scene after scene after
that makes
scene.
sense. That makes a lot of sense, actually. I hadn't thought about it that way.
And then you don't
Very
lose
cool.
track because what, it's a whole new scene.
That works.
I got senior moments that go on sometimes.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I don't know anything about senior moments. I'll deny. I will neither confirm nor deny.
And I'd like to say I'm a manic artist that could stay up all night, but guess what? I love my sleep too much, so I cut it off and it's over with.
Yeah, I have too many. I work too many long nights now. It's like bedtime is bedtime.
Yep,
Yeah, this
exactly.
works. You've presented at the United Nations Global Compact Committee. What is that? I mean, can you help us understand what that is?
Sure. So that's a committee of the United Nations. They came to Case Western in Ohio, and what they were looking for was research people, ideas to help businesses that wanted to expand across the globe be more sustainable. And in our case, what I was still in my doctoral program at the time, and people
Mhm.
thought I was crazy. It's like, okay, you're in a doctoral program, but you're getting ready to go. You submit a paper. Why? And I really wanted to do my first academic pursuit. So I did it. I got permission to use the EQI test and for research. And I tested and I had the ability to reach out because my family owns a steel manufacturing plant, multinational leaders that were CEOs or vice presidents of various very large corporations that worked all around the world. And then I tested domestic leaders that were just CEOs or vice presidents in one country. And so what
Oh,
I did in doing that is I wanted to find out, what does the multinational leader have higher emotional intelligence than the domestic leader? And if they do or don't, which one of the 21 characteristics are higher? And what we found was, and the good thing about emotional intelligence is you can build those characteristics. It's how you deal with people, problem solving, and people's emotions to get things done, right?
very.
So what ends up happening when we do the test is the multinational leader proved our hypothesis that it was higher than the domestic leader. But then when we looked at the characteristics, there was two characteristics that the domestic leader was high every single time. And that was very unique because no one had ever approached the characteristics before. They just looked at the total EQI score. And the two was self impression of self and empathy.
Oh, that's amazing. And what a brilliant opportunity to have a better understanding of emotional intelligence from that perspective, especially from an international as well as domestic perspective. That's very
Right.
cool, actually.
So then what we found is it kind of was like when we did the interviews, it's kind of like the big fish in the small pond.
Yeah, that's
The
pretty cool.
domestic leader is thinks higher of themselves and had less empathy because they didn't feel like they had to. They were the big fish.
Ah,
And then on the multinational leader, they knew just how small they were in the world.
that's, that in itself is another brilliant perspective because when you think about this and how people react, you look at a leader, well, what is it like Macron?
Mm-hmm.
Even from a perspective, I can't relate to too many like CEOs because I don't deal on that spectrum. I
Plane.
don't, I
Right.
don't recognize them, but I do pay attention to people like Macron or Trudeau or um, uh, we won't go any deeper, but it, even looking at it from there, you can see a difference in how they treat their country and how they relate to their country and how they lead the country from that perspective. You can see whether or not they have compassion and empathy for their constituents, for their occupants, compared to even a local government, whether it be a city council person or
Right.
a mayor, for example, or a governor. I see the hierarchy actually. I'm going to be thinking about this for several days now, looking at
Watch
it.
it. Yeah, watch the people that are multinational. Musk. Um, Look at Gates, though. Look at how he expanded from when he was just starting out. He probably was more less intelligent on those two spectrums as
Yeah,
when he got more multinational, and now he's trying to do good. He's self-actualized himself. He's
yeah.
trying to give back. Not everybody makes that leap.
Yes, yes,
you
I see
know
that. That's pretty interesting. That's you've just opened my mind up to some more exploration and research of my own. I think to past this conversation. So I appreciate that.
I,
Speaking of multinational, you do some extensive traveling.
I do. I wish I could do it right now. um
Yes, me
it,
too. So do
it
you
you know
incorporate that
there are
in
times in life that you can, and there's times in your life when you can't, right?
exactly?
Yes, one of my probably, I think each adventure you put yourself on, you allow yourself to open up. So sometimes I like to even travel by myself. Like I went to Belgium by myself with the intention that I was going to go to Paris, take the train, and then go to
Mm,
Amsterdam. But Belgium was smaller, more my flavor as far as feeling comfortable and safe and everything. I never got out of Belgium. I was go to
yeah.
Bruges. I went to get off the train in Bruges and found the blood of Jesus Christ there. I would get off in Antwerp, and I would be looking at the diamonds, and met some people there that allowed me in their facilities, and then got to see the deal being done between an African and a Jew, and saying, "Oh wow, no wonder there's so much tension between them." And of course, they spoke. They're the most polite people.
Yeah.
They speak whatever language everybody speaks until they're doing a business deal about diamonds. Then they switch languages on you, and you don't get to know where they're going to be delivered.
It's like see, there's a crime to, there's not a crime, but there's another mystery to solve. See, another
Exactly.
mystery to solve. Do
Yeah.
you incorporate any of those travels in your novels? They say you've got the one that's out, and you've got
Mhm.
several more that you're going to release. Do you like to incorporate any international travel within those? Because you mentioned
I,
earlier about somebody being in Paris, looking out the
yeah.
window.
Yeah. I would love to, but I haven't accomplished that the way I'd like to. I would love to write one that's strictly out there. You might get flavors of the dimensions, but I think that's my own fear and vulnerability
Yeah,
of protecting the way I say it. That I'm being completely empathetic to different cultures, and that I wouldn't accidentally, you know, do an Americanized version
of something.
of another culture.
Yeah, I respect that. I appreciate that. I just it makes you wonder. Because I've not been traveling internationally a lot. Actually, the only place I've ever been actually internationally is London, or
Hmm.
my wife and I went to Cancun and Tulum and Chichen Itza, and oh, there was two more places down in Mexico, and I don't remember
Yes,
where
I've
those
been,
were.
I've been to Mexico, Greece, Belgium, England, Scotland. I followed my family roots to Scotland and saw where there was a castle in ruins, because I'm into genealogy. So I've gotten all the way down to 1400s, except for one tree, which is a Polish Jew. So I probably won't get very much further on that, but I'm trying.
Yeah, that's cool. We should have another conversation just about that stuff. Very cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, my wife is Scottish.
Hmm.
Her dad went back to Scotland and got met with some God. Let me try that again. He went back there and met some of the relatives because they go all
Hmm.
the way back to the Robbie clan. They're
Hmm.
Mech Robbies, but they go back to the Robbie clan, who fought with, are you kidding me? Braveheart. Um,
Hmm. Okay,
Richard.
so Mary Queen of Scots. They're aligned to Mary Queen of Scots. I'm a sorbet Hannah. So it's on the southern tip of Scotland, and the Hannahs came to the United States. As a matter of fact, I just was reading. There's a great genealogical bank of newspaper articles from this, 15, 16, 1700s. You think they didn't have newspapers back then, but they did, and they used them for everything. Whether you got mail, you get it. They would post. These
Wow.
people have mail. And then, but there was one, and I got to tell this story because it's the most hilarious thing. I'm reading, and it says advertisement, Hannah. And I start reading, and it says, "My wife has put me in debt. I'm telling you all, she said that she's going to continue. So from this day forward, anybody doing business with her, I will not pay." And that was in 1788.
Oh, that's funny. My wife has put me in debt. Oh, that's like nothing like honesty, right? Here we go.
And I'm not going to do it anymore. She says
Uh,
she's going to continue.
that's yeah. She probably. I got to. My wife's gonna love that one. I have to tell her that one. But yes, we should have another conversation just about that. I think that if you don't mind, we can. I
No,
love
I would love.
genealogy. I love going back to where we come from and our roots and where we're going and where we're headed. And we go back to England, Scotland, Ireland, France, and Belgium, and that whole area. So yeah, we should do that. We should do that. Um, what role does music play in your life? Is that I think that I had seen some notes. When I was doing some research on you, that you love music, and do you incorporate that into your writing? Does that help you? I used to run a screenwriting conference when I first got out of law enforcement, and I had the guy that wrote A Knight's Tale, and
Mm-hmm.
he said that he got stuck in. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger.
Mm-hmm.
He said he got stuck. He couldn't figure out what he was going to. He started playing Queen came on, and We Will Rock You. That song
Mm-hmm.
came on, and all of a sudden he went, "That's what I was missing," and he wrote a whole number of scenes with Heath Ledger being a knight and fighting in the arena under that song with Queen, and inspired him to do that. Do you have anything that happened to you like that?
Oh yeah. Anything music wise, I if first I typically start writing with no music or TV or anything on because it gets me into what I'm doing. But especially if I'm stuck emotionally, I'll if it's something that needs to be more of a down. I might put the Doors on. If it's a love scene, I might put some romantic, Faithfully on or something. And then it does because it puts your mind into that typical mode. And it was funny when you said that. I was wondering what you found on the internet because I used to play the piano. I don't think I could play a note now. Maybe I could, but I took years of piano, and it showed my stubbornness. My dad was mad because I didn't get state for the third year road. I got second or place or whatever. And I told him I'd never play in front of anybody ever again, and I never did. So that shows my stubbornness too. So music brings out a lot of things in me, and one of them is it allows me to have my own identity because it allows me to focus on what I relate to, not something someone else tells me I need to relate to. I love
I,
all kinds of music, blues, R&B.
that's the only way to be. I think that music is a universal language, and that it's just like when we listen to other people talk. You have English, you have French, you have German, you have Italian, you've got Portuguese, you have Spanish, you have Swiss. You've got so many more, and music is the same way. It's a
Yeah,
universal language as well,
it
and each one of
definitely
us affects us.
it definitely does.
Yeah. Did you self-publish or did you go through a traditional publisher?
Well, I originally had a traditional, and then after 2 years of editing and working with them, they pulled out. So then my sister said, "Hey, when are you going to do something with this?" And I made every excuse in the book, and she said, "No, you're afraid to be vulnerable and put yourself out there again." So I started looking, and I was looking at both ways, and I went with a hybrid. Mindster Media is the one I went with. Mindster is JJ's baby, and he works with Kevin Harrington and helps, kind of stretch the wings out there. And actually, because of them, is how I got introduced to Merrill Hemingway.
Very
Um,
cool.
they work with celebrities that will consider endorsing or writing the forward for various artwork. What you have to do is you have to submit not only the proposal but your full manuscript to them, and then they decide if it's something that they can support. And in my case, Meryl decided to, and she released a wonderful YouTube video for anybody that wants to watch it. It's called Meryl Hemingway Praises Rhonda Parker Taylor's Crossroads. I swear I'm the first 1,000 views, so don't be surprised when you see all the views, because there are a lot of them. But she's a big name, obviously, in writing. Her grandfather's
Yeah.
Ernest Hemingway,
Ernest Hemingway.
and then with her being an Academy Award winning actress. But the reason she chose to put it in her club was because of the life balance and mental health pieces of everybody. It kind of
Mm.
pulled her in because she's had such a charmed life, but challenging, like all of us.
Yep.
And one of my favorite lines is at the end. She says, "We all come to a crossroads where we have to decide which way are we going to go." And then she said, "Even chocolate has an expiration date."
Yep. That's life. That's life. That was an amazing, opportunity that you had there. I think that
Right.
it gave you more depth than what you would have gotten, I think, with a traditional publisher in the first place. I wholeheartedly support self-publishing. I think that it's a better way to go. Either self-publishing or, like you did, you went through with a little help,
Mm-hmm.
instead of a traditional publisher. I think that, and growing up with a father that was a writer, and he himself was working on his own novels before he passed, and you see. I understand your journey with that when you went through 2 years of everything that you were going through. So I do understand that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Real quick before we wrap up here, what and I made some notes when we were talking here. What role does storytelling? We talked about earlier about storytelling and having the opportunity within storytelling. How can storytelling play, or what role does storytelling play in fostering like emotional growth within ourselves? Because you created these characters in such a way that they were built on emotional intelligence. They were built with certain factors that we can all relate to. So if we're reading this novel, can we learn something from it?
Oh, definitely, because it's a reflection of all of us. And when we're not in balance, and when we're not being true to who we're supposed to be, and when that happens, things can happen to us, and they often do happen to us. So yes, it's definitely not only for me when I wrote it, but it's for everybody that might relate to, hey, I've been putting too much into my job and not enough into my family, or I've been putting too much into my friends and not enough into my own building of character. And if you do find that, and that's one thing I would tell people sometimes is, look how you're responding to things. You got to let in, let go sometimes of the things that aren't healthy. And when we do that, we realize that being true to self does not mean that we're not a good person. And a lot of times we buy into the fact that if I'm true to myself, then I'm not being true to the world, true to my God, true to my family. No, you're being better to them because you are the eye of the storm. Whatever storms around you, you're providing the energy, positive or negative.
And that, I think, is an opportunity for us all. I love the word opportunity because we each have opportunity. And like you say, you come to a crossroads, you have a choice. And I think we in life have a choice. If somebody were going to look for your book and get it, where would they go to, please?
Barnes and Noble has most of them on their shelves, or they can go on Amazon. If it's not in the Barnes and Noble store that's close to you, you can ask them and they can order it. If you're in the Indiana or Illinois area, wherever I've traveled, I stop at all of the Barnes and Nobles close, and I literally sign them for you so that you can have a signed copy. So all the Indiana stores I know have copies and signed copies unless they sold out. And most of the ones in the Illinois, Chicago area, they're signed also.
And you also have a website.
Yeah, I do. RhondaParkerTaylor.com. All the links are there to buy it, whether you want to go to BAM, because I did forget BAM, your independent store, or off my website.
And I'll make sure all those are in the show notes as well, so you people have an easy way to access that. Rhonda, this has been amazing. Thank you very much. It's been a great conversation. I really appreciate you helping me understand a little more emotional intelligence. Like I say, I've got a whole lot of research I'm going to start doing probably tomorrow.
I like emotional intelligence because it means I don't have to be the brightest bulb in the bunch to still be successful. So it's the cheap way for everybody out there. It's the model for being successful without having that highest IQ in the room.
Well, I appreciate it even from law enforcement perspective because, like you say, it's how you approach things and how you approach life in general, how you approach conversations or situations. You really have to sit back for a moment, take a breath, and really kind of analyze what's happening in any part of your life that you either
Right.
struggling with, your obstacles, your current situation, any arguments, anything that's taking place. You have to take a breath and really kind of think about it before you act sometimes, and think about it before you take the next step. So yeah, I like it. I like it. If somebody wanted to take your path and they wanted to learn to write or to become a writer, a novel, you have any words of wisdom?
1 page a day, and it's done in a year. And find other like-minded people. Go to conventions. So you're building your audience right there too. Go to writing classes. There's lots of groups on like Facebook and stuff that you can join too, where you can get opinions and get a good beta reader. A beta reader will read through it and give you some content ideas that, hey, wait a minute, I lost you here.
Amazing words of wisdom. Thank you very much. Again, I appreciate. Thank you. It's been a pleasure meeting you. And I can't wait for your other novels to come out. You're going to have to reach back out to me when they come out so we can get those up on the air as well. And those we can expect them. You said one by the end of this year.
Yes. So the life balance. Well, the next one that's coming out is resilience. Because if you're going to go through crimes all the time, you need to be resilient. Okay. And
Yes.
then the life balance book is all about life balance, and will be the next one. So resilience is March 27th. Life balance has been pushed back till probably June, and then the journey of hope will be the end of the year.
It sounds like a very busy year. But
I'm trying.
But you're contributing to the entertainment, the creativity, and the opportunity to be inspired, motivated, and educated. So I'm grateful for that. Thank you very much for being on the show. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate it. And one more thing. Have a great day.
You beat me to it. One more thing before we all leave. Thank you very much for being a part of One More Thing Before We Go community. Thank you for being here. Be sure to like, subscribe, and to forward it on to your favorite person. And have a great day. Have a great week. And thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for listening to this episode of One More Thing Before You Go. Check out our website at beforeyougopodcast.com. You can find us as well as subscribe to the program and rate us on your favorite podcast listening platform.